and welcome. My name is Carrie Steele. I'm president of the Board of Commissioners at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. I'm pleased to welcome you to our 9th annual Sustainability Summit. For a second year, the pandemic has prevented us from meeting in person, but the MWRD is still working 24/7 to clean wastewater and manage our stormwater. Our speakers are ready to share their experiences on how communities are working together for a more sustainable environment. Plus, they will share their observations regarding our exceptional quality biosolid compost and the value of green infrastructure. I'd like to start the program by first introducing my colleagues, the MWRD Board of Commissioners. We have Vice President Barbara McGowan, Chairman of Finance Marcelino Garcia, Commissioner Cameron Davis, Kimberly Dubuclet, Commissioner Kimberly Dubuclet, Commissioner Josina Morita, Commissioner Ada Corral Sepulveda, Commissioner Deborah Shore, and Commissioner Mariana Sparopoulos. I would also like to welcome our Executive Director, Brian Perkovich. At the end of the presentations, we will announce the winners of the Biosolid Beneficial Reuse and Sustainable Landscaping Awards. We have been hosting this program for almost a decade, and while the speakers may have changed, the goals remain the same: to provide an opportunity to learn about sustainable resources available for MWRD and others. Those of us here today share a common value: to protect the waterways and the environment. By working together, we can reduce our carbon footprint and ensure a better world for future generations. We have a wonderful array of speakers today, and they will answer questions in the chat section as time allows. Dr. Teresa Johnson. I would like to kick off our program introducing Dr. Teresa Johnston, MWRD Senior Environmental Soil Scientist, who will give an overview of biosolids and compost use as a sustainable practice and provide an update on current partnerships. Dr. Johnson focus is on the application of biosolids and restoration of native soils using biosolids. She is interested in adding carbon to our soil to mitigate climate change and reduce the impacts of contaminants upon humans and ecosystem health. Welcome, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Steele and Commissioners, for that kind introduction. I'm Teresa Johnston. I'm the Senior Environmental Soil Scientist here at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and I am so excited to share with you about how using biosolids and compost can add to our sustainability. I want to start by sharing a definition of the word sustainable, since there are many variations. I am using the United Nations definition from 1987, in which sustainable means meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. As you will see, biosolids and compost add to sustainability from large scale to local scopes. We have seen headlines and images of climate crises throughout 2021, from record-breaking heat waves and extreme storms to rampant wildfires. From life-taking floods to continued droughts, our world is suffering the impacts of climate change. Major weather events impact regions, but the effects have a long reach. For example, there are now seed shortages and lower crop yields from the heat waves and droughts in the West, impacting our food supply. Continued climate events will strain communities further. This is not sustainable. Climate change is driven by increasing levels of carbon in the atmosphere. It is critical for our sustainability to reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere and minimize the effects of climate change. Soil is a natural carbon storage unit. There's more carbon in the top meter of soil than in all of the above ground vegetation and the atmosphere combined. We have been routinely releasing carbon from the soil through our intensive land uses, but the capacity for soil to hold more carbon is there. The International Panel on Climate Change modeled different potential climate sequestration models currently available. This chart shows those options and where they fall in terms of cost and capacity. Soil carbon sequestration has both the lowest cost and the highest potential. And here's where biosolids come into play. The Metropolitan Water Reclamation District produces about 135,000 dry tons of biosolids each year. These contain carbon and other nutrients. We process the biosolids to meet EPA requirements. Farmland application requires Class B biosolids, while urban applications use our exceptional quality EQ compost and EQ air-dried biosolids. By adding biosolids to soil, we are directly adding some carbon, but we are also supplying a food source and home for microorganisms and plants that will actually pull carbon in from the atmosphere and move it into the soil. Biosolids will be produced whether or not we utilize them in our soils. In addition to promoting soil carbon sequestration, by utilizing biosolids and not sending them into a landfill, we are also eliminating the associated emissions. You can see in this graph that the landfilled biosolids actually emit greenhouse gases, while use on urban soils pulls carbon out of the atmosphere. This is much more sustainable. In agriculture, after crops have been harvested, the remaining plant material begins to break down. A study done here at the district demonstrates that unamended agricultural soil allows for release of nearly 90% of that carbon back into the atmosphere during the decomposition process. When soils are amended with biosolids, that carbon release is reduced to less than 70%. That carbon is instead being added to the soil. Through both urban and agricultural applications of biosolids and compost, we can see incredible differences in the soil health. This driving range was established on a clay soil surface with very low organic matter. The photo on the lower right shows the layer of biosolids on top of the clay. The photo on the upper left shows the track of green grass through the clay surface that otherwise has poor grass growth. This track was a drip line from the biosolids spreader. If biosolids had not been applied to this surface, the driving range in the top right photo would have looked like the area around its edge that was not amended with biosolids. Our biosolids help improve plant growth throughout the Chicago area and surrounding counties. The photo in the center left shows corn grown in biosolids amended soil on the left side compared to fertilizer only on the right side. In addition to farms and golf courses, residents, schools, athletic fields, and parks use our biosolids, as seen here in the bottom photo, which is the Western Springs Park District. If the visual differences are not enough to convince you we are adding carbon and improving soils, we can show you with numbers. The figure on the far right shows chemical fertilizer only in red, biosolids in green, compost in purple, and a fallow field with no amendments in blue. The upper graph represents the top 6 inches of soil, while the lower graph shows the soil from 6 to 12 inches. The addition of biosolids and compost increased the amount of carbon in the soil at both the upper and lower layer in the year they were applied and maintained that higher carbon amount over time compared to unamended and fertilizer-only soils. I hope this gives you a glimpse at the potential for biosolids to add to our global sustainability through carbon sequestration. The next level of sustainability that we see is regional. One great benefit of using biosolids is that agricultural and horticultural synthetic fertilizer use can be reduced. The district is a partner in the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Program. The goal of this program is to reduce nutrient loading in our waterways. When too much nitrogen and phosphorus enters surface water, algal blooms occur as the water is full of nutrients, and that algae quickly uses those available nutrients to grow in vast volumes. This causes impaired water with reduced oxygen that can lead to fish kills and undrinkable water. By using appropriate rates of biosolids and reducing fertilizer use, we can reduce these nutrient overloads. Our recommendation for biosolids application takes into consideration the nutrients that are in the biosolids, and our best management practices are to avoid applying when runoff into surface waters will occur. Another important concept for regional sustainability is the circular economy or closed loop for the Chicago region. The goal here is to keep nutrients and carbon cycling locally rather than sending them out, potentially contaminating other areas such as the atmosphere or our regional waterways. We're also using these materials locally for positive local impacts. So biosolids can be used for plant growth. Those plants can then be harvested, used locally, and then composted, or in some ways returned to the water reclamation plant, where they then return to biosolids use. We can also see regional urban renewal with EQ compost. We see this increase in biodiversity in many areas that use our EQ compost for things such as monarch waste stations, pollinator gardens, native tree and prairie plantings. We see increased biodiversity for both plants and animals. We also see improvement in stormwater management. Recreating these natural habitats and areas helps reduce that flooding and absorb that water during major storm events. We are also using EQ compost and EQ biosolids to convert degraded spaces into green spaces. For example, in the lower left, you can see a parking lot in Alsip, Illinois, that is currently undergoing a conversion to a native savanna system. It will have native grasses, forbs, and trees planted there through the use of EQ biosolids and air-dried materials. We're also adding local fresh food options. Community gardens can create fresh food options, especially in areas that have otherwise been food deserts in which they don't have access to local produce in their grocery stores. This allows them to get fresh vegetables. That brings us to local and individual sustainability. By using bulk compost rather than purchasing plastic bagged products, we can reduce our waste. We can also reduce the amount of fertilizers in our lawn and gardens. This can reduce the amount of nutrient loading in our local waterways, so we won't see as much algal blooms on our local ponds. Again, we are allowing access to local fresh food. Individuals can grow their own produce in their own yards. And we're increasing the amount of green spaces, which is good for both mental and physical health. If we are adding trees and green space to our areas, we can create temperature moderation and peaceful, tranquil places for people to enjoy. So I hope that gives you an idea of some of the ways that using biosolids and compost add to our sustainability from a large scale to a local scale. I'm now going to move into different partnerships that we have through different organizations in the Chicago area. The first is the Green Infrastructure Project Opportunity Program. The partners for this are MWRD's Stormwater Engineering and public entities in Cook County. The goal is to build green infrastructure to mimic the natural environment. Different municipalities and public organizations can partner with us so that they can create these spaces that will help manage stormwater and provide native plants. This restores the hydrologic cycle, which is an important way to help reduce flooding in many of these areas. EQ compost is a component of the soil mix for those rain gardens and bioswales, and so it plays an important role in this partnership. Another important partnership is Space to Grow. This is organized by Healthy Schools Campaign and Open Lands with partners of Chicago Public Schools, the Chicago Department of Water, and the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. The idea of Space to Grow is to convert areas that are otherwise plain parking lots into areas that children are able to play and enjoy time outside. The goal is to connect children to clean water and nature, provide space to play, and help manage neighborhood flooding. EQ compost has been used in rain gardens and bioswales for some of these projects. Another important partner for us is the Calumet Collaborative. The vision of the Calumet Collaborative is the advancement of a thriving Calumet region through transformative sustainable development. One of the major components of this mission is to transform brownfield sites, which are contaminated sites that are otherwise not able to be used for specific purposes, into usable land again. The partners in the Calumet Collaborative are many organizations, universities, government agencies, and municipalities who are all committed to improving and revitalizing the Calumet region. Our role has been to provide biosolids to brownfield sites. And one example is this site at the Illinois International Port District, in which we're converting a large area that is proposed to be developed into an area that has rich soil rather than contaminated soil. We also have many partners throughout Cook County that use biosolids for park districts, schools, and various municipalities. Some of the most popular uses are using EQ biosolids to restore or maintain athletic fields, restoration of brownfield sites throughout Cook County, roadways, for example, this picture in the bottom left from the Illinois Toll Road, and parks, which you can see here in the photo at the bottom right of Maggie Daly Park, which was created using a soil mix that included EQ compost. We also have many partners through urban gardens. These can be local community groups, non-government organizations, municipal community gardens. Some examples are the group Chicago, which has sites throughout the Chicago area, and they try to create community gardens in those food deserts. The Berteau Butterfly Garden, which is a pollinator garden created in an alleyway. Fairway Farms, which is located at Cog Hill Golf and Country Club and provides local produce for their kitchen. The South Austin Neighborhood Association, which is pictured here, and Julie Roth Children's Garden in Berwyn. And there are many other local gardens that have used our EQ compost to provide material for their flowers and vegetables. We also have partnerships with many farmers. Over 1.2 million dry tons of biosolids have been applied since 1996. Farmers enjoy the use of our biosolids because it reduces the need for synthetic fertilizers. Again, this adds to the concept that we can reduce the nutrient loading into our waterways. It's also adding carbon to the soil to enrich their soils. In addition to individual farmers, we also have partnerships with the Illinois Farm Bureau and Cook County Farm Bureau. We have been partnering to share our information and resources so that we can help unite farmers to biosolids. And we're also working on educational partnerships so that we can share the science and education about biosolids and soils with local schools. That concludes our official partners, but we also want you to be a partner in using our EQ compost and biosolids. If you are interested, material is available in late April to May through October or November, and this depends on the weather and on the demand. If you are interested, go to mwrd.org and select services, and then you can select either biosolids or EQ compost depending on the use you want it for. You can also go directly to the websites mwrd.org/biosolids or mwrd.org/EQ compost, or email me directly at johnstont@mwrd.org. Once again, thank you for inviting me to speak at the 9th Annual Sustainability Summit. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Dr. Sally Brown, a research professor at the School of Environmental and Forest Sciences at the University of Washington. Dr. Brown will discuss case studies of other cities and perspectives on emerging issues related to the use of compost and biosolids. Dr. Brown has worked on risk and benefits associated with the use of urban residuals for her entire academic career. This work has focused primarily on municipal biosolids, but also includes compost and digestates generated from the organic fraction of municipal solid waste. Welcome, Dr. Brown.
Good morning, Sally from Seattle here, and very happy to talk to you about biosolids and what a wonderful program you guys have. Wherever you live, whether you go gold-plated, whether you go squat system, or whether you go in the woods, everybody at some point or many points during a day will visit one of these and contribute to your system. In a natural system, bears do it, bees do it, just like the Cole Porter song, but I don't think he was talking about eliminating waste. It was more falling in love, but you'll accept the liberty here. It's all part of a natural cycle. Plants grow, we eat those plants, and we get rid of the stuff that we can't use. But just because we can't use it doesn't mean that it doesn't fit and enhance in a natural system. In fact, it is a fabulous way to add organic matter and recycle nutrients in natural systems. Now, when you have this many bears, not so many woods, we overtax that system. And that is why we have wastewater treatment. If you look way back, long before there were that many bears and long before we understood diseases and how they were passed, night soil or using human waste as a fertilizer was a very common practice, especially in Asia. And it was a great way to maintain fertility, crop yields over time. You can read about this. The one problem was the pathogens. And here is a little close-up of cholera. And the greatest public advance in the 19th century was wastewater. We eliminated waterborne diseases for a good portion of the population, and that's still a goal in the Millennium Development Goals. But first goal of wastewater, eliminate human disease, and we got that. Then came the recognition that if you separate the dirty water from the clean water and put that dirty water, and here I mean nutrient-rich and carbon-rich and BOD-rich water, back into lakes, it's not so good for those lake systems. Here's a picture of my own Lake Washington in the 1960s prior to secondary treatment. That's been fixed. You guys certainly know this. Here's a picture of Lake Michigan, which I've had the pleasure of swimming in on multiple occasions. Clear as anything and a little chilly, but lovely. So we got that with the Clean Water Act and secondary treatment. Now we're at a next phase where we're recognizing that what comes into the plant that we have treated as waste is actually repurposed resources. Bioenergy, anaerobic digestion is a way to reduce pathogens. It's also a great way to make green power. All that water that you treat can be used, and in many cases that purple pipe for reclaimed water is being recognized as a way to sustainably have sufficient water, and the solids. All of these things, all of these different types of treatments have added up to making us make more biosolids. I love biosolids. I love them for so many reasons, and I'll share that with you. Realize that every time you flush, a little bit of you is going to end up in those very same biosolids. Now, biosolids we've in the past thought of as a waste material. We've had the luxury to do that. But as a soil scientist, you have to realize that these materials are gold for a soil. A clear way to show that is with work that I did years back. These are all sites on the EPA Superfund list, so dead soils, dead for decades soils, heavily metal contaminated soils. In each case, we use different kinds of biosolids in combination with lime material, high rates, and brought the soils back to life. Soils that are now used as golf courses, as grazing lands, as wildlife habitat. All of these were heavily poisoned systems, and biosolids brought them back to life. Now, let me point out that you guys were the pioneers in bringing these dead soils back to life. These are pictures from Fulton County, where you started applying biosolids in '73 and now harvest corn and soybeans. That is really impressive. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. But anyway, also want to point out that that works on these contaminated mine sites. It also works in urban soils where history of lead paint and lead gas have left some soils highly contaminated. We've done a lot of work showing how biosolids can reduce the lead availability and reduce reduce the danger posed by the lead in these soils. It's the best tool out there to clean urban soils. Not only do these materials work on contaminated sites, we did a sampling of a wide range of sites in Washington State. Dryland wheat, you guys get rain, so you don't have that. You certainly have turf grass. You certainly have landscapes, cherry orchards up north in Michigan, and you have plenty of roads. In each of these cases, we looked at the impact of biosolids or composts, and what we saw was increased soil carbon, increased soil nitrogen, increased water holding capacity, all critical factors in making soils healthy and sustainable for the future and in the light of climate change. In addition to making those soils better, you get that big payback. You get bigger and healthier trees. We do a lot of land application on commercial tree plantations, and you can see exactly in those tree rings where the biosolids application started, and you get bigger and healthier broccoli. One of the studies I'm working on now is using biosolids and other amendments for urban agriculture. Here you can see broccoli from a biosolids amended plot on top and from a fertilizer amended plot on the bottom. If you don't believe me and you want to prove this with your own material, just ask Albert Cox. He was generous enough to share some of his harvest, at least in pictures, with me. And you can see you guys make great stuff. So not only does it help the soil, not only does it help your harvest, you help save the planet. This is a study we recently published, and we've published a number of studies on this, and we are not the only ones that publish this. You guys started with this years back with the Fulton County work. When you use biosolids for land application and you help the soil, you also sequester carbon in the soil, and you also avoid fertilizer use. And both of those things add up to carbon credits and carbon sequestration. So with our forestry program and one site, in a rich soil, we didn't see a change in carbon, but we did get a fertilizer credit. In another site, poorer soil, we got over 5 tons of CO2 sequestered for each dry ton of biosolids applied. That is a fabulous thing to save the planet, get bigger trees, get more food, help the soil. So when you have all of these wonderful things going for you, I would really strongly encourage you to use your biosolids as well and as broadly as you can. And don't let unrealistic, not logical, not real science-based fears get in your way from doing so. For those of you that are following this, the reason I have eyeliner and lipstick here is because a recent study came out and found that these products have perfluorinated compounds in them, generally at concentrations about double what we see in biosolids. So if you're worried about PFAS, don't wear lipstick. Look at me, I obviously don't. Or take the PFAS out of the lipstick. Don't deprive your soils, your ecosystems, and the planet from your biosolids. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you for having me do this.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. If there are any questions, please write them in the chat box. Our next speaker is Matt Freer, Assistant Director of Landscape at Chicago Park District. Matt has worked at the intersection of people and nature for over 20 years. He has spent most of his career working in urban environments. Currently overseeing the Chicago Park District's environmental conservation and engagement team, his recent work has focused on access to nature for Chicagoans. Matt and his team are planning and expanding nature areas in Chicago that benefit all Chicagoans to address individual and community health, increasing urban heat, flooding, air population, and rising lake levels. Matt will give us an overview of the Park District's sustainability initiatives and activities. Feel free to post any questions for Matt in the chat box. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the MWRD board for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Chicago Park District. I'm very excited to talk to you today about our sustainability efforts and our partnership with MWRD. I am Matt Freer. I'm the Assistant Director of Environmental Conservation and Engagement at the Chicago Park District. What that really means is I oversee the Chicago Park District's just under 2,000 acres of natural area and related programs. So all of our canoeing and kayaking programs on the Chicago River, all of our camping programs, our 3 nature centers, and then all of our lagoons, wetlands, and native habitats across the city. So many of you know the Chicago Park District well, but here's a brief summary. We have over 8,800 acres of parkland throughout the city. We have just over 1,900 acres of natural area, 600 plus parks, 27 beaches, 11 world-class museums, 10 lakefront harbors, 26 miles of lakefront, and 11 nature play spaces. The Chicago Park District is a leader in sustainability. This has started many years ago, and it's come a long ways in the time that we've been working on it. So we have many facets of our sustainability efforts. Today, I'll be focusing on a few of them, mostly our biodiesel program and our natural areas program. A quick overview of everything that we do is we have a number of educational and programming components to sustainability. We have LEED certified buildings. We have a new environmental center on the southeast side, the Ford Calumet Environmental Center, which is LEED certified silver. Our new headquarters, which will be in the Gage Park neighborhood, is aiming for LEED certification as well. Our energy usage is currently at 100% renewable sourced. We have a green procurement program, so that is in our purchasing department. We have a green process to our purchasing. We have 6 out of 10 of our marinas are certified as clean marinas. We do real-time beach monitoring for water quality issues for public engagement. That information is published the day of the data is collected. We're the only municipal beach manager in the country that publishes the data in real time. We're very proud of that fact, and we've been doing that for 7 years now, and we anticipate doing that into the future. We have significant waste and recycling practices. We have green operations within our landscape and our natural areas programs. We're constantly doing upgrades to our facilities for energy efficiency and stormwater. We have a timber reuse program. We reused felled trees for nature play and mulch across the district. And for planning purposes, we use a green print map to think about flooding, heat island effect, water, and air pollution. So diving into the details here, one of the areas I'm going to focus on is our biodiesel program. So we're very excited. This is an ever-growing program, but 55 of our 200 diesel vehicles run on either B10 to B100. So that's a scale. You can see here the number of vehicles that breaks down to: 5 refuse trucks, 19 heavy-duty trucks, 6 light-duty trucks, and 25 off-road or other vehicles. We do have 2 lakefront garbage trucks that run on 100% biodiesel, which we're really excited about. It's actually quite incredible the effect that those 2 vehicles can have. You can see those numbers here: over 14 pounds of particulate matter, 16 pounds of hydrocarbons, almost 160 pounds of carbon monoxide, 12 pounds of sulfur, and 53,000 pounds of carbon dioxide mitigated from our system by using just these 2 trucks. Another area I'm going to focus most of my presentation on is our natural areas. So just a brief on what our natural areas are, because most people don't think about Chicago as having these wonderful urban natural areas. So our mission for our program is to create habitats that are dedicated to the cultivation and enrichment of ecological diversity and nature exploration, learning, and the enlivening of the human spirit. I think one very important point about what I'm going to talk about within our natural areas is having pristine natural areas is important, yes, but we at the Park District, our mission is people as well. So people are a very important component to our natural areas. So here you can see an image about where our natural areas are across the city. As I mentioned at the top, we have just over 1,900 acres, 90 different managed sites, which makes up just about 22% of total parkland. So some folks are aware, but there is an increasing disconnection with Americans from nature. And so we feel like we're in a great place to address that because the parks are people's backyards, especially in Chicago. By providing nature in many neighborhoods, we hope to help recreate that connection. Here's some literature that speaks to that. This Last Child in the Woods is sort of was the catalyst for what is now being called nature deficit disorder, and it's a great read if you haven't had the chance to check it out. I'm not going to read this whole quote here, but it highlights the importance of nature for humans, but also humans for nature. As we've seen over the pandemic, people are using natural areas, green spaces in ways they haven't before. And there's significant research connecting people's mental and physical health to getting into those spaces. Another significant benefit to our natural areas is a significant benefit that MWRD likes to see is these ecosystem services. There's a high demand on these urban natural areas from both people, visitors, wildlife, animals, insects, birds, pollinators, but also just from being in an urban environment. Higher concentrations of carbon and nitrogen, pollution, heat, flooding instances, and aesthetics. People have a certain aesthetic they want to see in their park, and sometimes natural areas don't meet that. So these are all things we need to balance when we think about our urban natural areas. But these are also incredible tools for mitigating things like flooding and heat and pollution, air and water pollution. Many of our natural areas provide carbon sequestration, which is a great tool in fighting climate change. Again, this is a wonderful quote about the sort of oxymoron of urban biodiversity. I like to say that none of our urban natural areas are remnants, but the pollinators and the trees and the people enjoying them don't really care. They appreciate the wildlife for what it is. So just a few shots of some of our beautiful natural areas. This is our South Shore Nature Sanctuary. This is a wonderful path at Humboldt Park, one of the lagoons at Humboldt Park. And again, to touch on the people aspect of it, an important part of what we do is to have cultural relevance, to bring in and gain support. So this is a gathering space in Burnham Park. Another image, this is right on the lakefront at the north end of Burnham Park, just south of McCormick Place. And these were curated spaces by community groups and artists. Again, you can see the curated space here that we worked on with the Field Museum, a group called Contratiempo, and some artists from Michoacan. So the theme of this gathering space is the monarch butterfly, which migrates from the state of Michoacan as far north as Canada. So this is another important cultural artifact within our natural areas that brings people to gather and celebrate these spaces. So a lot of this work wouldn't be possible without a lot of our partners. So here's just a brief glimpse of the size and scale of many of those partners. I think it's worth noting that these range from both small community organizations like Sacred Keepers in Bronzeville to regional organizations like the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District to national organizations like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Park Service. So we have a great relationship, especially within our Natural Areas program with MWRD. So I want to take a moment to highlight the wins that we've worked on together. This is one of my favorite images. If you haven't been to Horner Park is a Chicago Park District park. Part of it is leased from MWRD. That's actually what you're looking at here is the Riverbank. This was an Army Corps project to do significant grading and restore the bank to native oak savanna habitat. It is a beautiful place to just go for a walk or go sit by the river. So it's overall, it added 11.5 acres of new natural area. There are 2 access points to get in and near the Chicago River. The project removed many invasive species, replaced by hundreds of native species in the process of construction. And we're very excited that there is a new effigy mound as part of 4000 North, which is a representation of what would have been a native effigy mound that could have been there at one time, built by the Potawatomi people. Another great partnership with MWRD is River Park. We do lease a portion of the park from MWRD, and in partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers, in 2018, we took down Chicago River's largest dam. The image on the left shows the day that the dam came down. The image on the right shows that area now with stones and riffles that has an immense benefit on the water quality and the stream habitat health overall. In addition, this project created 13 acres of new natural area complex along the Chicago River. It is both River Park and Legion Park to the north. This has also created a programming hub for our programs. You can see here the image on the left is our River Lab, which has canoeing and kayaking classes, adaptive programming with our CPD Special Rec program, programs based in aquatic ecology and fishing. All of these are new, in large part thanks to the restoration done in partnership with MWRD, the Chicago Park District, and the Army Corps of Engineers. An additional project we have in progress is SEPA Station 1, recently leased property from MWRD. The image in the center here, that yellow line is kind of the delineation of Indian Ridge Marsh north to the north on that picture, and the SEPA Station to the south or immediately adjacent to the Calumet River. This lease provided 12.6 new acres of natural area along the Calumet River and SEPA edges. This creates a habitat corridor for wildlife connecting Chicago Park District natural areas to the SEPA Station and the Calumet River. So there's a connection from Indian Ridge to the SEPA Station to other Park District natural areas north of there. The image on the right used to be a thicket of buckthorn along the edge of the river and the SEPA lagoons, and you see all those flags in that image are new native plants going in, waiting to get established. And you see bright yellow dots in the background. That's our crew hard at work, continuing to plant. We've planted over 50,000 plugs in this area, in large part thanks to a $450,000 grants that have come in since the inception of the project. So what's next? We are in the process of looking at a lease at Dead Stick Pond, which is critical wetland habitat on the southeast side, again, immediately adjacent to the Calumet River. So tremendous habitat value and an opportunity to improve the ecological health of the Calumet River. There's a water control structure there that will help us to manage flooding on the southeast side. And there's also the potential for trail connectivity to Indian Ridge Marsh and Big Marsh, other significant natural areas that the Park District manages on the southeast side. We're also working on an intergovernmental agreement to address mission-aligned goals across the Chicago Park District and MWRD sites. We're hoping that this agreement can help us to collaborate on using green infrastructure and natural areas projects to improve flooding and stormwater runoff at sites across the city. I just want to thank you for your time, the opportunity, the work that you do to make a lot of this possible, and thank you to the MWRD board.
Thank you, Matt. And our next speaker is Stephanie Casaros. Stephanie is the founder and president of Bright Beat, a Chicago-based consultancy founded in 2010 to activate environmental stewardship and social responsibility. Bright Beat supports city and county solid waste reduction and diversion goals by developing awareness campaigns and helping businesses and organizations initiate food rescue, composting, and recycling programs and partnerships. Stephanie will give an overview of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition's collaborative activities and how others can contribute to these efforts. Welcome, Stephanie.
Good morning, and thank you, President Steele and the Board of Commissioners, for the opportunity to provide an overview of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition to all the attendees here at the 2021 Sustainability Summit. My name is Stephanie Casaros, and I am the founder and president of Bright Beat, as well as a proud founding board member of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition, and also the co-chair of the Communications Committee. The IFSC is an active nonprofit organization advancing diversion and composting of organics in Illinois through advocacy, program implementation, market and business development, policy, and outreach. We were started in 2012, growing out of a food scrap coalition and composting forum. I met over 24 members of the Illinois composting community that day, including 11 current board members. And I literally went back and checked the attendee list. It's really astonishing the high number of long-term active members in this industry and community. It's a testament to their dedication and the power behind this movement. It's slow, but steadily gaining traction with collaboration at every level. Today, the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition, the IFSC, has well over 100 dues-paying members and sustaining partners. Our membership includes businesses, composters, haulers, local government agencies, nonprofits, Go Green groups, residents, and more. Our work is led by 5 committees focused on education, policy, communications, compost market development, and our We Compost recognition program. IFSC's monthly general body meetings are open to all, and they feature a guest speaker. These meetings and the discussions that take place, they're like informative inspirations that really activate innovation among our members. As a state chapter of the U.S. Composting Council, we have the ability to share broad resources, as well as the opportunity to engage all these members that you see on the screen in national programs and studies and policy initiatives. With the help of our committee members and partners, we publish educational materials, reports on the status of composting, valuable infographics, and biannual newsletters. Many reports and resources, including those used for legislative and municipal education, have been made possible with grant funding acquired by our fiscal agent, 7 Generations Ahead, who are also very active individuals on the board and as members of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. Additionally, we publish several blog posts accessible to the public each year, and we table at several events, actual in-person events in normal times, as well as popular virtual events like the Compost Research Education Foundation's International Composting Awareness Week, the International Composting Awareness Week Lunch and Learn series that Illinois Food Scrap Coalition did this year can be found on our YouTube channel. And it attracted people from outside of Illinois, across the country. It was super exciting. And then the educational assets that we create, both digitally and for in-person distribution, they allow us to build awareness around finished compost use and composting as a key component of the circular economy and zero waste goals. Additionally, the resource IFSC has created and compiled have successfully ignited new composting programs across the state. So as Teresa and Sally have already discussed, there are a vast number of benefits to using finished compost. the IFSC's Compost Market Development Committee focuses on building and targeting this very message. But I want to take a moment to let you know how the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition targets our messaging and partnerships to wasted food. And as it states in the simple infographic here, wasted food wastes all the resources spent to plant, grow, harvest, and transport food to stores. Wasted food also wastes the energy spent transporting food to landfills, where it decomposes anaerobically, releasing methane, a potent greenhouse gas. This makes wasted food really low-hanging fruit for tackling climate change, as well as a valuable source to community organizations working to feed the painfully high number of neighbors experiencing food insecurity. So based on these priority environmental and societal concerns, IFSC as an organization, as well as many active members, have contributed to the creation of tools and informed policy recommendations in partnership with the Wasted Food Action Alliance and the Illinois Environmental Council, specifically targeting food waste. Bringing us back to composting, the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition website helps Illinois residents and businesses, institutions, even municipalities find appropriate service for their needs. The Illinois Food Scrap Coalition membership is comprised of a growing number of facility operators. Their involvement and input ensures that our tools and resources and education and messaging all reflect what is accepted at most facilities in Illinois. Additionally, these facility operators help the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition make sure that their key pain points are addressed, which includes contamination and increasing the market for finished compost. We like to remind people, composting facilities process compost, aka manufacture compost, but they also sell compost. The We Compost Recognition Program began in 2014. It's now exceeded 220 members. We've got gold partners that keep all of their food scraps out of the landfill using a hauling service. We have silver partners who keep a portion of their food scraps out of the landfill, back of house, maybe not front of house. And lastly, our green partners compost food scraps on site. And you can see on the slide, there's a wide variety of different entities that are all part of this recognition program. Collaboration has been embedded in the fabric of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition since our inception. It truly, I speak personally when I say this, Illinois Food Scrap Coalition has truly developed one of the most supportive and productive communities I've ever been a part of. I cannot overstate the impact of individual advocates and allies throughout this ecosystem. Looking back at our history, initially grants secured by the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity and 7 generations ahead led to statewide stakeholder forums. The outcomes of those forums included Illinois Food Scrap Coalition recommendations to the Illinois Recycling Task Force that led to the advancement of food scrap composting. And across all of our work streams, our success is 100% due to the partnerships that have been inspired and born out of the work between the IFSC and its members and all who choose to collaborate. It's county governments and waste management agencies, haulers and municipalities. The Zero Waste School program in and of itself is just collaboration. Policy recommendations like the Materials Management Advisory Committee recommendations that were recently made, it was in July, to the Illinois General Assembly. There are so many important ways that we can advance the initiatives of composting in this state, and we're always learning and adapting. Most recently, prioritizing the access of composting across the city and state has been elemental to our work. We're advancing equity, knowing that it strengthens the system, it strengthens our soil and our community as a whole. This initiative and so many of the educational resources have been thanks to the funding of the Searle funds at the Chicago Community Trust and Foodland Opportunity, which is a collaboration between the Kinship Foundation and Chicago Community Trust, and many more. I encourage you all to follow the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition on social media, where you see the links here, and also consider joining. We have so many benefits to stakeholders that are a part of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition, and even those who just join on our monthly calls and get involved in the discussions. I also want to mention that membership to U.S. Composting Council, though it's separate, it's very integrated in terms of the benefits you get from being a part of this community. Once again, thank you, President Steele and the Board of Commissioners, for allowing me to present the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. And I hope you've all been inspired by the collaborations we've already done, and maybe you can be a part of them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And our next speaker is Mwrd Sheikh, Systems and Strategy Manager of Chicago Food Policy Action Council. She will discuss centering communities in land use planning. Mwrd is a daughter of immigrants, descendant of liberation leaders, and a Castanea Fellow. Land, food, and justice are her blood. Let me do that over. Land, food, and justice are in her blood. Mwrd has worked across many areas of food system development, including soil bioremediation, development, including soil bioremediation, bioenergy, stakeholder relations, consulting in the edible insect industry, and advancing racial equity in land, food, and water access. As a National Science Foundation Fellow, Mwrd moved to Iowa from Southern California to learn about industrial agriculture from the belly of the beast, studying sustainable agriculture and community and regional planning at Iowa State University. Welcome, Mwrd.
Hello, I want to thank our audience for joining us today, and I want to thank the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago for hosting this 9th Sustainability Summit. I want to thank President Steele for welcoming me to speak at this summit. I'm Mwrd Sheikh, the Systems and Strategy Manager at the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, where I serve to advance issues on land access and equity. Today I'll be discussing how we can center communities in land use planning and seed environmental justice on public land. Today I'll be discussing about community resilience, the importance of community resilience, and whose responsibility it is to advance resilience in our communities. I'll touch upon a framework for environmental justice and how to instill this as a pathway moving forward. I'll talk about land as a solution to addressing some of the core issues in our community and highlight bright spots that center our communities. I'll also be discussing some shifting mindsets that decision makers can adopt to help advance this work. So what is community resilience? Community resilience is the ability to prepare for hazards, adapt to changing conditions, and withstand and recover rapidly from disruptions. Why is community resilience important? We live in a world with increasing, unpredictable, and unprecedented disruptions. Who is responsible for creating resilience? I'll be honest, this is an all hands on deck moment. We all need to respond. Some of us have greater power and thus greater responsibility to respond. And that's where our institutions, municipalities, and decision makers come into play. I want to present you with a framework for understanding healthy communities. And this is something that many of you are already familiar with because you work on our transportation options, you work on affordable housing, community safety, economic opportunity, environmental quality, community design, parks recreation, and other issues. All of these things together help inform our resilience and inform health equity in our communities. I've shared a little bit about community resilience. Now I'm going to discuss a pathway for getting there. The framework that I want to present is one rooted in environmental justice. Now, environmental justice is a big word. What do we actually mean by EJ or environmental justice? While there are a lot of definitions out there, most of them include the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of those communities that are most disproportionately impacted by the issues that we are seeking to address. Now, this is a three-pronged issue, according to this framework. The first aspect that I want to touch upon is representation. What does representation mean? Representation means putting impacted communities at the forefront of the decision-making process. What is the process that we're talking about? Planning processes and decision-making must be fair, transparent, accessible, and provide opportunities for these impacted communities to engage and participate fully. And when we're talking about process, we can't turn a blind eye to the distributive impacts that we are looking to address, the distribution of benefits and the distribution of burdens across our communities. Now, I've presented you with a framework for better understanding these issues, an environmental justice framework that is rooted in distribution, process, and representation. How do we address these issues based on where we're standing? One way to address these issues is to look to the land, the solution that is right beneath our feet. Many of you work on issues related to land, and I want to present you with a framework that approaches land use not in a linear modality, but one that considers that multiple challenges are what we need to be addressing, and that in order to address these multiple challenges, we must look at multiple benefits. We must look to the land to provide us with multiple benefits that address the multiple challenges and the emergent challenges that our society and communities face. Looking to the land for things like healthy food access, emergency preparedness, economic equity, community connectedness, jobs. Looking to serve underserved audiences, stormwater management, environmental reclamation, natural resource protection, and more. These are the multiple benefits that we will need to incorporate as part of our land use planning. With that is a tall order. I want to recognize some bright spots that exist in our communities, bright spots that have really centered our communities as part of the solution-making process and as part of defining the problems that exist. The first bright spot that I want to highlight comes from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago's brilliant effort called Space to Grow. Space to Grow is a cross-sectoral program that transforms Chicago schoolyards into beautiful and multifunctional spaces. Space to Grow engages community members throughout the development process, in designing the schoolyards and in utilizing them as a community benefit. There are multiple benefits offered through this program. Not only does this Space to Grow program engage communities, it addresses stormwater management. It improves neighborhood flood mitigation. It boosts physical activity and wellness and supports learning in our communities. I want to applaud the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago for taking the lead on this effort and for cross-collaborating with the Chicago Public Schools, Open Lands, Healthy Schools campaign, and the Department of Water Management in order to make this effort possible. Another bright spot that I want to highlight comes from the community of Englewood, the Englewood Line Trail. The Englewood Nature Trail is going to be a 1.7-mile park that transforms a vacant rail corridor into a naturalized space for residents to enjoy and use to connect with nature. This trail acts as a safe access corridor, connecting our local farms and businesses. This project includes multiple benefits. Not only does it engage our communities, it strengthens local food access. It expands employment in the neighborhood. It includes recreation. It improves transportation options. This is a project that is community-centered and community-driven. It actually responds to the community needs and is tailored and shaped by our communities. I want to applaud Grow Greater Englewood and the Department of Planning and Development for enhancing this project and for taking it seriously by including our communities as part of the planning process. The third and final case study that I want to highlight is the Green Era Chicago project. Green Era is a 9-acre brownfield site that has been transformed into an agricultural campus and anaerobic digester. This digester will process food waste into renewable energy and fertile compost. Green Era will bring jobs, fresh food, and renewable energy to Chicago's South Side. This project again includes multiple benefits to address multiple challenges in our community. Not only does it engage communities at every level, at every step of the way, it creates renewable energy, provides waste management, enhances local food production, and creates jobs, training, and education programs. Green Era really exemplifies what collaboration and partnership can do in our communities. It is a collaboration between Urban Growers Collective, Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corp., the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, and the City of Chicago. I want to use this as an example of how our community-based organizations can be a great asset to our planning municipalities and how they can partner together to really create projects that address community needs on the ground. Last but not least, I want to leave you with some mindsets, some strategies that you can utilize to shift your mindsets on how to approach this work. First, address emerging challenges. We live in a world with emerging challenges. In order for us to create community resilience, we must address emerging challenges as part of the work that we do. Part of this is being responsive, being adaptive, being collaborative. But another part of this is really questioning existing norms that prevent us from responding. And as I mentioned at the beginning, some of us have greater ability to respond and therefore bear a greater responsibility in responding to create community resilience. The second strategy that I want to highlight is naming it to tame it. Be explicit in naming issues such as racial inequity, food insecurity, wealth gaps, gentrification. If we cannot name the problems that are plaguing our communities, we cannot hope to find solutions to these issues. The third strategy that I want to present is including community input at every stage. This includes defining the issues that plague our communities. Too often, decision makers come on scene having already defined the issues without gaining valuable community perspectives and knowledge. Planning and design, implementation, and evaluation are other steps of the way at which community input and perspectives are not only valuable, but necessary if we are to create resilience. A fourth strategy is to seek to maximize community benefits. These include environmental, economic, social, and health benefits. The fifth strategy that I want to present is embodying being transparent, accessible, and accountable. This includes our policies, procedures, processes, in addition to understanding how the benefits and burdens that result from the decision-making process are distributed amongst our communities. And last but not least, amplifying economic equity every step of the way. We live in a growing world of inequities, and in order to create resilience, we must amplify equity every step of the way. Part of this is tracking where our dollars go. Looking to contracts, looking to services, looking to goods. Where are we employing and centering BIPOC communities when it comes to allocating financial resources? With that, I want to leave you with a couple of quotes that have been front and center in my mind. The first quote is from Jane Jacobs, author of The Death and Life of Great American Cities. Cities have the capability of providing something for everybody, only because and only when they are created by everybody. And this quote from Malcolm X, land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. With that, I'd like to thank the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District for hosting this 9th Sustainability Summit. I'd like to thank President Steele for inviting me to speak to all of you. And I would like to thank all of you for listening and for incorporating these strategies as you move forward to enhance community resilience for us all.
Thank you. And next, we're going to turn our attention over to our MWRD staff. All things related to MWRD's stormwater program will be discussed by our licensed civil engineer, Andre Haynes, senior civil engineer, Steve Hawk, associate civil engineer, Lucas Rote, and public affairs specialist, Annie Wright. Welcome, Andre.
Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity to present at this Sustainability Summit. Hello, my name is Andre Haynes, and I'm a senior civil engineer with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. This presentation will cover grants and MWRD partnership programs. Today, my colleagues and I will be sharing information on MWRD's partnership programs. which include the Stormwater Partnership Program, the Green Infrastructure Partnership Program, and the Flood-Prone Property Acquisition Program. Then we will share some information on how these programs can work with grants. MWRD has the authority for general supervision of stormwater management in Cook County since 2004. One component of MWRD's stormwater management section is the Stormwater Partnership Program. Two types of projects which are typically considered for this program are conceptual projects and shovel-ready projects. MWRD's partnership relies on its combined efforts with partner agencies and Cook County individual residents as well. Most local sewers are required to carry more water today than they did when they were first installed, so residents can participate by reducing water usage during and after rain events, as well as by using rain barrels, and also by exploring ways to have their yards absorb stormwater. Conceptual projects and shovel-ready projects use drainage infrastructure to manage stormwater, whereby reducing flooding of structures and roadways, which convey emergency vehicles to the benefit of public safety. Projects are prioritized for selection based on criteria such as their ability to reduce localized flooding, the number of flood-prone structures benefited by the project, and whether the applicants are in compliance with MWRD ordinances such as WMO and Inflow and Infiltration Control Program. MWRD and the partnering agency execute an intergovernmental agreement, or IGA, to facilitate the project. Partner agencies contribute a percentage of funding and maintain project infrastructure. MWRD monitors design and construction of the project and inspects project installation. What are conceptual projects? Conceptual projects identify a flooding problem that exists without having started engineering analysis. In these projects, MWRD assists partners by identifying flood control alternatives through a preliminary engineering study. Another related initiative is the Master Planning Program, which evaluates stormwater management needs throughout Cook County and assists flood-prone areas with developing master plans tailored to each community. Community participation will help ensure that local needs and priorities influence the development of potential projects. The program will work to identify potential projects, partnerships, and funding programs to help communities implement these future projects. What are shovel-ready projects? Shovel-ready projects have reached a near final design prepared by the partner agency prior to application to and selection by MWRD. Selected shovel-ready projects will enter into a cost-share agreement between MWRD and the partner agency to build the project. New storm sewers and new storm sewer outfall along North Shore Avenue in Englewood, as shown, is a shovel-ready project that constructed a separate storm sewer system that mitigated overland flooding and basement backups for a 23-acre residential area. An estimated 500 structures have benefited. The 2021 call for stormwater projects was for conceptual projects only. As a result of our 2021 stormwater project call, we have selected 5 conceptual projects which pose potential solutions, including ditch widening, conveyance and detention improvements, sewer separation, and storage basins. Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity to present at this Sustainability Summit. Next up is Stephen Hawk, who will share information on MWRD's Green Infrastructure Partnership Program.
Thanks, Andre. I'm Steve Hauk, and I'm a senior civil engineer in our Green Infrastructure Group, and I'm going to talk about the Green Infrastructure Partnership opportunities. MWRD encourages and supports implementing green infrastructure, also known as GI, which includes a range of engineered installations that store, infiltrate, and/or evaporate stormwater, thereby mimicking the natural water cycle. The MWRD recognizes that GI practices can be effective in reducing wet weather flows to combined sewer systems, reducing combined sewer overflows to local waterways, and reducing runoff volumes and improving water quality in separate sewer service areas. The MWRD also recognizes the vital role of local government in addressing flooding concerns through the innovative use of GI. The GI program goals include building GI to reduce stormwater flows to local sewer systems and prevent combined sewer overflows, use GI to address local flooding and draining problems, promote GI as a complementary way to manage stormwater with natural systems, aesthetically enhance public areas and increase a community's green space, and provide improvements in water quality. MWRD and the partnering agency execute an intergovernmental agreement to facilitate the project. Partner agencies contribute a percentage of the funding and maintain the project. MWRD monitors design and construction of the project and inspects the project. MWRD will invite other government entities to submit applications for GI projects during an open call for projects. Evaluation criteria for those applications may include, but are not limited to, design retention capacity, or the amount of stormwater that can be captured and infiltrated by a green installation, benefiting structures, the number of structures that will experience positive effects due to the project, impervious area to drainage area, the area that will drain to the proposed GI installation, the square footage of impervious surface removed by the project, and the total area of impervious surface that will be converted to permeable area. Sewer service area, combined sewers or separate stormwater and sanitary sewers. Flood-prone areas, areas that exhibit documented drainage or flooding issues locally. Cost share funding, the funding amount requested of the MWRD and the amount of funding an applicant can provide towards the project. This includes the ability of an applicant to fund capital improvements and available sources of funding, such as grants. Operations and maintenance, the applicant's ability to maintain the installed GI includes previous experience maintaining GI, availability of labor and equipment, and an understanding of the financial commitment. Public visibility and outreach, the ability to promote the project to the community, and considers the visibility of the project, community involvement, and educational outreach to local residents before, during, and after construction. Existing MWRD stormwater development. This is the amount MWRD has previously contributed to improving a community and/or a watershed's stormwater management, including past year's GI program partnerships. Current project status, the current status of the project. The categories include conceptual, design, and shovel-ready. Examples of green infrastructure, permeable surfaces. Poured play surfaces are flexible porous surfaces for playgrounds, running tracks, and trails. Additional storage is provided by an aggregate layer below the poured surface. Permeable pavements, an alternative to traditional asphalt and concrete parking lots, walkways, and low-traffic roadways. Captures stormwater runoff and retains it within coarse aggregate void spaces long enough for the water to percolate through the underlying soils. Examples of green infrastructure include plant-based systems. Bioswales reduce the quantity of stormwater runoff being discharged from a site to receiving storm sewer systems and streams. They capture a portion of stormwater runoff and retain it long enough for the water to percolate through the underlying soils and/or evaporate and/or dissipate through evapotranspiration by plants. Fine sediment, nutrients, bacteria, and organic materials can be filtered, absorbed by soil particles, or utilized by plants. Rain gardens can collect roof and surface runoff, allowing the volume collected to infiltrate into the ground. The stored volume would otherwise flow immediately to storm sewers and streams. Green roofs are roofs covered with growing media and vegetation that enable rainfall infiltration and evapotranspiration of stored water. These can be cost-effective in dense urban areas where land values are high and on large industrial or office buildings where stormwater management costs may be high. Naturalized spaces include dry bottom basins, wet bottom basins, construction wetland basins. These promote sedimentation and infiltration and reduce the likelihood of resuspension of sediments. They take up nutrients and filter incoming particles. We are just finishing up our 2021 green infrastructure call for projects, so I don't have all that data available, but for our 2020 green infrastructure call for projects, we had 32 green infrastructure applications received. Of those, 16 GI projects were accepted, and when those are constructed, approximately 2 million gallons of DRC will result from those projects. Thank you all very much for this opportunity to speak at the Sustainability Summit. Up next is Lucas Rote, who will share information on MWRD's flood-prone property buyout program. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Hi, my name is Lucas Rote, and I'm an associate civil engineer in the MWRD Stormwater section. I'm going to talk to you today about our flood-prone property acquisition program. This is a program by which the district purchases properties within riverine floodplains, demolishes the building, and thereby reclaims the space that the natural floodplain functions in. The home depicted was removed at 1327 Pine Street in Glenview on April 1st, 2015. The district facilitates flood-prone property acquisitions by two methods. First, the district may offer assistance in acquiring funding through federal FEMA grants in order to purchase properties, known as the Local Sponsor Assistance Program. The other method is by direct funding and assistance by the district through our local government application program. Through this program, municipalities work directly with the district to appraise the value of homes, evaluate the cost benefit of avoiding annual flooding damages incurred by the property, and acquire properties within the floodplain and floodway for demolition and restoration to their natural floodplain functionality. This map that you see before you illustrates proposed properties to be acquired, overlain by a FEMA flood insurance rate map for a flood-prone property acquisition application in the city of North Lake, Illinois. Flood-prone property acquisition applications have been submitted and accepted for the 2021 fiscal year. Out of 4 applications received, the district has accepted all 4 for the program. This year's applications would remove approximately 30 homes from the floodplain for a total cost benefit of over $42 million and total floodplain area restoration of over 4 acres. MWRD's fiscal contribution to this effort is in excess of $7 million. The flood-prone property acquisition program is voluntary to engage in by all parties, including the municipality and homeowner. In order to be eligible, homes must be located within the FEMA mapped 100-year floodplain or the district's detailed watershed plan inundation area. Depicted is the home removed at 1341 Pine Street in Glenview on April 20th, 2015. Homes must be demolished and maintained perpetually as open space. The applicant, i.e. the municipality, is responsible for legal fees, closing costs, and demolition of structures. Applicants must enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the MWRD. Priority will be given to applicants receiving FEMA funding. In order to apply for the program, a pre-application form is required to be submitted by the applicant. This pre-application form includes a descriptive narrative of the project, including 2 maps, which include the targeted parcels highlighted on the map, the FEMA flood insurance rate map, or the detailed watershed plan inundation area. Included with this pre-application form is an approximate cost estimate for purchase and removal of the homes. And now, without further ado, I will hand it off to my colleague Annie Wright, who will speak to you about grant applications.
Hi, my name is Annie Wright. I'm a public affairs specialist at MWRD. I apply for and manage grants for MWRD, and today I'm here to talk about how the partnership programs work with other grant programs to leverage funding. So in order to get grants, you first have to know how to find grants. And there are two main programs that you can find government funding on. For federal grants, we have grants.gov. And for state of Illinois grants, we have the Illinois Catalog of State Financial Assistance. In order to find them, grants.gov, you kind of have the way to find it in the name. And for the Illinois Catalog of State Financial Assistance, I usually Google Illinois GATA, which stands for Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, which is a law that governs granting in the state of Illinois. So when you get to the pages on grants.gov, there's multiple ways that you can search for grants. You can search through the grantors, which would be the federal departments and agencies. You can do a keyword search at the top of the page in the search bar, or you can just click go on the search bar and it will list all the available grant opportunities, which are updated every day. On the Illinois Catalog of State Financial Assistance page, you can see the list of links here for the different ways that you can search. And I would recommend at first clicking on all the links and going through the programs to see what kind of funding the state has available. And they don't update it as often as grants.gov, but they do update it. So once you find a grant, in order to apply and get funding from the programs, you have to keep your profiles with both agencies up to date. So for grants.gov, you would update your profile on sam.gov. And if you haven't received any funding before, first you would have to create one. So register your entity with sam.gov. Now it will take you to a site called login.gov, which is just for security reasons in order to sign on. But all of your information would be updated on sam.gov. And for the Illinois state grant programs, you remember when I said you're searching for it, you can put ILGATA in the search bar, and you can see here what your search results would be. So the second link is the Catalog of State Financial Assistance, which I was just talking about. But the first link is for the Grantee Portal, which is where you would create your registration and update it every year. So the kind of information that you have to put in to update is you have to look and see if your employer ID number is correct, see if your banking information is correct, and upload every year your auditing information to show that you're in compliance. And again, you have to do this every year in order to get funding. So some general advice on applying for grants. You should search with a project in mind. Don't find a grant and then think of a project to fit it. Consider, will the grant timelines work with project timelines? It takes a while for the funding to become available. And if the funding is significant, can you pause your project and wait for the funding to become available? Will it work out? Another thing to consider is what type of reporting is required. So every grant requires reporting to show that you are doing what you said you would do in your application. Do you have staff available to do it? Some of the reporting is fairly technical. So if you have staff available and able to do the type of reporting that's required. Another thing to consider here is the amount of effort have to put into the application. How extensive is the application and how extensive is the reporting required? If the funding is for a small amount of money, but requires a very in-depth application and technical reporting, is it worth your staff time? Another thing to consider is, are you eligible to apply? Sometimes eligible applicants are only government entities or only nonprofit organizations. If you're not eligible, can you work with an eligible partner to get the work done? Another thing to consider is matching funds. Most grants require a percentage of the funding to be matched. And for federal programs, the funding generally cannot be federal funding. That is the match. And the photos here are from a grant that MWRD received from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency for energy efficiency improvements at the Stickney Water Reclamation Plant. So this was energy efficient lighting in a tunnel under Stickney. And you can see it's good for the environment, but it also looks a lot less depressing, in my opinion. Okay, so how does all this relate to MWRD's partnership programs? The main thing to consider is matching funds. You remember I said that for federal grants, cannot use generally federal funds to match a federal grant, but MWRD funding is not federal funding. Another thing is partnership opportunities. Municipalities apply to MWRD's partnership programs for similar projects. Consider partnering with a neighboring municipality to create a bigger application that might be more attractive to a funder. And in that end, at the next Watershed Planning Council meetings, the fourth quarter, MWRD is inviting municipalities to come prepared to talk about upcoming capital improvement projects so that you can hear what your neighbors are working on and consider partnering up. Some grants to consider based on our 3 partnership programs. For the Stormwater Partnership Program, the FEMA BRIC program, which stands for Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, is a good match because that program funds projects that will prevent future disasters, including flooding. So stormwater management projects would be eligible. And for the Flood-Prone Property Acquisition Program, you might remember there were 3 ways that municipalities could apply for that through MWRD, and one of them was for municipalities that had received funding through FEMA. And this is the funding that they received through FEMA, the FEMA Flood Mitigation Assistance. So this is for communities that are participating in the National Flood Insurance Program and are in good standing. They can apply to FEMA and they can use MWRD funding as a match in order to get funding for flood-prone property acquisition. And for the Green Infrastructure Program, I have 2 grant opportunities listed here. The Illinois Environmental Protection Agency Section 319 grant, which is a water quality grant, but it can fund things like permeable pavers, rain gardens, bioswales, things that improve the quality of stormwater runoff. Or the IEPA Green Infrastructure Grant Opportunity, which funds all different types of green infrastructure in the state of Illinois. The drawing that I have here is of the Robbins Stormwater Park project. And this project has leveraged funding, all different types of funding, using the project funding from MWRD as a match. One of the grants received was for, there will be a new diversion channel to the CalSag channel. And this grant through the Chi-Cal Rivers Fund will fund the naturalization of the channel. And MWRD is working with a partner for that grant. Another grant received for this project is the Section 319 grant, which will fund green infrastructure for an area adjacent to the park that doesn't currently have drainage. It will fund bioswales and a rain garden in that community. And the Village of Robbins also received a grant using matching funds from this project through CMAP's Local Technical Assistance Program. And that grant will fund a study looking into the feasibility of a transit-oriented development near the park. So as you can see, this project, using the funds provided through the Stormwater Partnership Program, a lot more work is able to be done in the area, making it a bigger project that will help more people. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, everyone. That was very informative. Now, I want to remind everyone to please list your questions or type your questions in the chat box. I was checking out all the questions and responses a little while ago, and you guys have some great questions and are very in tune with what's going on. So Please keep those questions coming. If you think about anything later that you did not ask, know you can always email us or leave a message on the website. Even if you don't get a response right now, staff is very in tune with the chat box and they will get a response to you. So now we're going to enter into the awards portion of the program. The Biosolids Beneficial Reuse Award recognizes the activities and innovations of individuals and organizations that successfully use MWRD biosolids. Through field demonstrations and educational outreach, the benefits of biosolids have been demonstrated to be a cost-effective way to improve soils and establish plants. The first winner of this year's prestigious Biosolids Beneficial Reuse Award is Angelica Carmen, Sustainability Specialist from Cog Hill Golf and Country Club. For lending Cog Hill's sustainability program on the use of EQ biosolid compost on raised brick. Let me start that over. Angelica Carmen, Sustainability Specialist from Cog Hill Golf and Country Club, for leading Cog Hill's sustainability program on the use of EQ biosolid compost in raised beds, creating planting bed soil. The next winner, should we just go through every winner? Okay, the next winner is Keelan Blackwell, President and founder of Chicago Eco House, winner of the 2021 Biosolids Beneficial Reuse Award for his use and promotion of biosolids to grow flowers in vacant lots and other open spaces. Their efforts and accomplishments in promoting and inspiring youth to use biosolids is inspiring. We had many impressive applicants in the sustainable landscaping category, which honors organizations and individuals that work to minimize the impact of stormwater. 2 organizations have been selected for the top awards in sustainable landscaping. The first recipient is Dan Delaney, Certified Golf Course Superintendent from the North Shore Country Club, for his use of a drainage system to capture and reuse stormwater. Dan developed an underground water detention tank system to capture and reuse rainwater throughout the golf course. The second top recipient in the sustainable landscaping category is Stephen Johnson, representing the University of Illinois, Chicago, for the school's use of permeable pavement, a rain garden, and native plants to assist in flood prevention and create a pollinator habitat. We have 4 certificate winners to announce. Gina Illinopolis from Keeler Gardens, NFP, is the first recipient of her efforts in promoting native plantings and inspiring and educating communities regarding native plantings. Angelica Carmen, Sustainability Specialist from Cog Hill, I don't know why I keep messing that up. Sustainability Specialist from Cog Hill Golf and Country Club is receiving a certificate for her efforts to establish wetland plants and for transforming a waste disposal area into a bioswale. Matt Sudman, Development Writer and Grants Manager from the Friends of the Chicago River, is receiving a certificate on behalf of Friends of the Revegetation and Replacement of Native Plants in Forest Areas, and for the revegetation and replacement of native plants in forest areas. They established native plants for food prevention over hundreds of acres and assisted in providing cleaner water entering the Cal-Sag Channel. And last but not least, Christopher Flaherty, President of Green Gorilla LLC, is receiving a certificate for his work to establish native plant garden design and applications during rain gardens, river restoration, and lawn to prairie. Green Gorilla is an eco-friendly landscaping company that promotes biodiversity. Congratulations to all of our award winners, and thank you for your commitment to protecting our communities through long-term environmental stewardship. I would like to go through those names one more time to acknowledge our winners. So we have, and let's just give them a virtual round of applause at the end. So we have Angelica Carmen, Keelan Blackwell, Dan Delaney, Stephen Johnson, Gina Elopoulos, Angelica Carmen, Matt Sudman, and Christopher Flaherty. Let's give them all a round of applause, and we thank you for helping us maintain our clean water environment. Because of your hard work in protecting the waterways and the environment, the Chicago region grows more resilient and vibrant every day. This concludes our program. We got through it. We had some technical difficulties here at MWRD, but we learned how to pivot. We've been pivoting all the way through this pandemic. So thank you, staff, for getting us through this. We relocated. We were running around the building, but we got it done. So thank you. You will receive an emailed request to share your feedback via our online survey. Please take a moment to share your thoughts with us. But once again, be nice, because you know we had technical difficulties. And please remember to type your comments in the chat box, because we will get back to you, either respond to your comments or respond to your questions. If you would like to learn more about the MWRD and our history, we have been hosting monthly virtual tours, and the next tour is set for Tuesday, November the 9th at 10 a.m. You can visit our website to learn more about the virtual tour and to register to attend. Thank you again for spending your morning and afternoon with us. If you wish to learn more about any of our programs, feel free to visit our website at mwrd.org, or you could give us a call at 312-751-6633. That's 312-751-6633. Thank you. I'm Carrie, President of the Board of Commissioners at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. You guys have a great afternoon. Thank you.